So, indecent exposure. It's a phrase we've all heard, right? But what does it actually mean when you're talking about the law? Today, we're going to break down California Penal Code 314 and really dig into how one accusation can completely change someone's life. Here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the legal definition, what makes something a crime versus just an accident. Then we'll get into the penalties, which are pretty serious. We'll walk through what happens right after an arrest, talk about how bail actually works, and then we'll bust some common myths about this charge. Okay, let's jump right in. First up, the definition. To really get why this charge is so serious, you've got to know exactly what the law says. So, what legally counts as indecent exposure in California? I mean, people throw this term around, but the legal definition, it's super specific. The prosecution can't just make an accusation. They have to prove a very clear set of facts. And here's the core of it, right from the penal code. It's about willfully exposing private parts in a public place. But here's the kicker. It has to be with the intent to sexually arouse oneself or someone else. Those two things, willful and intent for arousal, are everything. That's the bright line between a really embarrassing accident and a serious crime. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The very same action can land you in two totally different worlds of trouble. Is it a misdemeanor or a felony? Well, a first offense with no kids around, that's usually a misdemeanor. But if you have prior convictions or if it happens near a school, boom, it jumps up to a felony and everything gets way, way more serious. So let's talk about those penalties, because even the word misdemeanor can be seriously misleading. A conviction, even for a misdemeanor, can have consequences that stick with you forever. Okay, look at this breakdown. For a misdemeanor, you're looking at up to a year in county jail, fines that can run into the thousands, and probation, which might mean counseling or community service. But see that last one? Mandatory registration. That is the one that really changes the game. Yeah, that's the big one. We're talking about mandatory registration as a sex offender under Penal Code 290. This isn't just a penalty. It's a label that can last a lifetime. It creates huge hurdles for finding a place to live, getting a job. I mean, the social stigma alone is just immense. Okay, so let's shift gears. What happens in those first few hours after an arrest? Let's walk through the process, using the example of Placer County, California from our source. Right. So once someone's in custody, the whole booking process kicks off. It's pretty standard stuff. Fingerprints, the classic mugshot, all the charges get documented, and then they're put in a holding cell. And after that's all done, the big question becomes bail. Now, this isn't some random number pulled out of thin air. Each county has what's called a bail schedule, which is basically a price list for different offenses. And that leads us right into the next logical step. How do you get out of jail while you wait for your court date? For a lot of people, the answer is bail bonds. So what's a bail bond? Think of it this way. Instead of coming up with the entire bail amount yourself, which can be huge, you hire a licensed agent. You pay them a fee, usually a percentage of the total bail, and that fee is non-refundable. In exchange, they post the full bail amount for you, guaranteeing to the court that you'll show up. So the bail bondsman is doing a few key things here. They can get you out of jail fast, they make it way more affordable since you're only paying a percentage, plus they can help you figure out the whole confusing process, and they keep things confidential. It's a whole service, really. Okay, to finish up, let's hit a few of the most common questions people have about this stuff. There's a lot of confusion out there, so let's clear some of it up. First big question, is indecent exposure always a sex crime? And the answer is a simple, straightforward yes. Even if it's a misdemeanor, the law classifies it as a sex crime, and that is precisely why that mandatory sex offender registration is on the table. All right, next question. What happens if you can't post bail? How long are you stuck in jail? Well, you could be in custody until your court date, and that could be days or even weeks away. That's where a bail bond makes a huge difference, turning weeks in jail into just a few hours. And one last one for you. Do you absolutely have to hire a lawyer for a Penal Code 314 case? So, no, it's not technically required, but our source material is really clear on this. It is highly recommended. A good lawyer knows how to navigate the system, look for holes in the case against you, and fight to get the charges reduced or even dismissed. It's all about avoiding those really bad long-term consequences. When you boil it all down, it really comes to this. You've got to understand your rights, know what you're up against with the penalties, and get the right help on your side fast. In a situation this serious, moving quickly can change everything. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've talked about the legal system, right? But in this age of permanent digital records, how does a mere accusation, let alone a conviction, follow a person around long after the case is closed? It really makes you wonder about second chances when someone's past is literally always just a Google search away.